I am Mark Lichtenwalter, and today is June 18th, 2022. I drive a coal truck for a living, and I am Red Pill Mormon, also the host of Zion's Redemption Radio Network and a podcast called Zion's Redemption Radio Network, formerly known as Fundamentally Mormon. So tonight I would like to talk about Balim and Balik. So a lot of people know Balim because he had this donkey that started talking because the donkey saw this destroying angel and Balaam didn't see it, and he's beating his donkey, and his donkey decided to inform him of the angel that was waiting to kill him. But there's so much more to Balaam than his talking donkey. Balaam was a prophet in Israel. He was sought for by a man named Balik, who was an enemy of Israel. Balik paid Balaam, and Balaam took the money, to curse the Israelites in the name of Jehovah. Well, every time Balaam went to curse the Israelites, God gave him a thus saith the Lord revelation, in the which the blessings of God came out through the revelation. And Balak, he's like paying this guy, and I think he does it like 3 times, and basically Balaam says, look, I am a prophet, but Jehovah our Elohim is giving these people blessings because of their righteousness. And if you want Israel to be destroyed, they must be wicked first. And Balaam, this traitor prophet, he taught Balak that if you can just get them to accept wickedness, that God will no longer bless them, but he will curse them, and then you can destroy the righteous nation. So there's an interesting principle here. If you have a righteous nation and you want to destroy them, you will not be able to do so unless you get them to accept wickedness. Well, in the last days, we have this nation that I live in, the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills, the United States of America, which is interesting. So, in Genesis chapter 49, Yaakov, or Jacob, who became Israel, he gave a blessing to his son Joseph. And he told Joseph that his posterity would be removed from his brethren, or the other tribes of Israel, and they would go to the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills, which is interesting because if you look at a map or a globe, you're going to see that all these mountain chains are kind of limited, except for one. One mountain chain, which is the geological area where Jacob called the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills, it starts at the tip of South America and goes all the way continuously, unbroken, to the very top of North America. The utmost bounds of the everlasting hills is North America, where the tribe of Joseph would have his posterity or his children go to. Now, in the Babylonian captivity, or before the Babylonian captivity, you had Israel, which is Ephraim. So Ephraim was given the birthright and the name of Israel, which is kind of interesting when the Jews claim Israel as their nation. Well, that's kind of a a little bit of a misnomer, because Judah, the tribe of Judah, was where Jerusalem was, and that was where the Jews were, and that was what was destroyed by the Romans in 68 to 70 AD. But they've taken upon themselves the name of Israel, even though the birthright was through Ephraim, and Ephraim is the one that was given the name of Israel. The 10 lost tribes in the northern country, that was Israel. The kingdom of Judah was down where the Galilee was, and where the the tribe of or the home of Jerusalem and Nazareth and all those places. Bethlehem, that's all in Judah. So the misnomer is that is Israel and this is America. But this is where the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh would be taken to. So in the Babylonian, or before the Babylonian captivity, the northern tribes of Israel were destroyed, and they were taken captive, and they went up into Assyria. When Assyria collapsed, the tribes of Israel, which were in the captured northern kingdom, they went in, disappeared, and we call them the 10 lost tribes, but they didn't really disappear. Around the same time, there was a group of nomadic people who came up out of the Black Sea area, just north of where Assyria was, and they called themselves Yisak's or Isaac's sons, as it's translated or transliterated, and they were later known as the Saxons. They became the Visigoths and the Goths and the Vandals and all of these different tribes, but they went up into the north country of Russia, the Caucasus, and into Europe and into the British Isles. And that is where many of the children of Manasseh and Ephraim went up into this area, especially up into the British Isles. Now, there were those in Jerusalem before the Babylonian captivity who were also members of the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, which is the sons of Joseph, the son of Jacob. And Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, was given the birthright name of Israel. So this utmost bounds of the everlasting hills, spoken of in Genesis chapter 49, is the true land of Ephraim and Manasseh. So we know in the book of Lehi and in the book of Nephi, in the Book of Mormon, which is the record of the tribe of Joseph, talked about in Ezekiel chapter 37, that these people eventually made their way into the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills. First, after the Babylonian captivity with Ishmael and Lehi and their families, who were of the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh. But then later on, when the Puritans came over to this land, they were mainly of the house of Ephraim, and they were being called to this land because this is where the birthright, this is where their land was meant to be. And this is the fulfillment of Genesis chapter 49, where Jacob, or Yaakov, or Israel, blessed his son Joseph, that his children would be taken to the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills, which is North America. And there's only one mountain chain that goes all the way from the north part all the way to the south, south to north on the globe, and that is the mountains that start in the South America that are called the Andes Mountains, and the mountains that extend and continue all the way up through the Isthmus of Panama and Latin America, all the way up through the Rockies into North America, into the United States of America and Canada, up into Alaska. That is the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills, which is where the tribes of Joseph would be taken to in the last days. And this is our birthright land. So, this is where God led these people to. Now, this nation and the founding fathers were inspired by God to create the Constitution and the Bill of Rights so that there could be a free nation in the world which would be righteous. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin, that you have a nation that requires a righteous people. And if the people are not righteous, the nation will not last. All right, so that was back in the 1770s, 1780s, 1790s. And then you have the formation of the Church of Jesus Christ, which is a restoration church brought about by a prophet by the name of Joseph Smith, who had an angel come to him after seeing the Father and the Son. The angel came to him to instruct him, and this angel had the everlasting gospel to give to this prophet that would preach it unto the ends of the earth. This is spoken of in Revelation chapter 14, where there is an angel that flies from the midst of heaven in the last days, that cries with a loud voice, saying, repent ye, the day of the Lord is at hand. So you have the building up of God's nation on the earth, which is the United States of America, and shortly thereafter, you have the building up of the church and kingdom of God within the envelope of that righteous nation. Now, the United States isn't always righteous, but overall, the principles of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, at least the first 10, are righteous, maybe up to 16. But we were a very righteous nation and there's been some problems, as there is in all nations throughout history, but we became powerful, starting in World War I, and then leading on into World War II, but also with the capitalist Carnegie and the Rockefellers and the steel and the railroads and the gas and all of these things and all of the inventions with people like Henry Ford and others. This nation became very wealthy and very prosperous, and we led the world in innovation. And like I said, I'm not making excuses for the bad things that they did, but there were good things too. All right. So in the 19-teens, you had the Bolshevik Revolution and the destruction of the Republic of Russia and the Kaisers, or not the Kaisers, I can't remember. Maybe they're called the Kaisers. Anyway, there was a Bolshevik Revolution led by powerful men who were, I'm sorry if you're a socialist, they were satanic. Vladimir Stalin, Lenin, Goebbels. Well, no, Goebbels was Germany. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There were wicked men that brought up this Soviet Socialist Republic, which was in full force when I was born in 1977. In fact, I remember when the wall fell in 1989, and as a child, we had to practice atomic missile raids in our Kadena Air Force Base elementary school in Okinawa, Japan, because they would threaten to nuke Okinawa over the SR-71 spy plane flying over Russia or the Soviet Union at the time. And in fact, just a really interesting point that doesn't have anything to do with this. When I was returning home from Japan, we flew from Kadena Air Force Base in a KC-10 refueler for the Air Force, and we flew up to Yokohama. No, it wasn't Yokohama. It was Osaka, Japan. And then we flew up to Fairbanks, Alaska, and I was 10 years old, and I got to sit in the jump seat behind the pilot. And we flew up just outside of the airspace of a town or city in the Soviet Union called Petrograd. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced. But anyway, I could see the Soviet Union from my jump seat in the cockpit of that KC-10 as a 10-year-old boy. Anyway, so it wasn't long after that, 2 years after that, is when the Soviet Union completely collapsed. And God told me, when that happened, that this was a farce. That these generals and these leaders in the Soviet Union were simply taking off their uniforms and putting on business suits, but that the same people that were in control of the Soviet Union were in control of Russia. And I was given some other information about that, which I'm not going to share at this time, but I always thought it was very interesting. Anyway, going back to 1956 or 57, you have a UN General Assembly where Vladimir Khrushchev, I think his name was Vladimir. Maybe all the villains are named Vladimir. I don't know. Anyway, it was Khrushchev. And his first name is actually right on the tip of my tongue, but it doesn't matter. He told the UN General Assembly in New York City, at the UN in New York City, that they would not have to fight us in war to defeat us, that they would feed us little bits of socialism until we fell like ripe fruit before them. Which, when I went to God as a child, as a young teenager, I asked what they meant by this. And God told me that there were moles, communist moles, in our country, and that they put themselves, or they got employment in the systems of higher education, the universities and the colleges, and they were spreading their poison from those places. Now remember what Balim said to Balik. You cannot destroy a righteous nation unless you get them to accept wickedness. And over the years, all the way from the late 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way up until today, you have had this growth of socialism within this nation that is a direct attack on the liberties of a free and righteous people. And these leftists are doing everything that they can to get you to accept wickedness. And the whole goal of this is so that Satan can destroy a righteous nation. And we're seeing this get worse and worse and worse with these secret combinations and these left-leaning squish Republicans and Democrats that are interested in socialism and making excuses for the wickedness that they are allowing or teaching within our nation. Well, that brings us up until 2013. When God showed me who I was and why I was called as a witness, and yes, I have seen him face to face in the flesh, I was told certain things that year, not long after God revealed to me exactly who I am and who I was foreordained to be. And that was in July. No, that was in January of 2013 that experience happened. Not long after that, God revealed to me that I needed to raise my arms to the square and use the authority that he gave me when he placed his hands upon my head in 2003 to sever the priesthood and the ordinances of all the holy people. Well, I did not know at that time that Daniel chapter 12 actually speaks of this prophecy. But when I asked God why he wanted me to do this thing, he told me, if they will not accept you as my witness, who I have sent, I will not accept them. And he explained to me that basically in order to set the kingdom of God in order, there had to be a hard reset. And this was part of that. So in July, on July 15th of 2013, I raised my arms to the square near Bliss, Idaho, just off the banks of the Snake River, and I, by the authority given to me of the Father, severed the ordinances and the priesthood of all the holy people. Now, a couple of things happened when I did this. The protections of the righteous were withdrawn to a point, and the devil was allowed to basically run full-on attack against this nation and nations around the world. Beginning in 2013, you see this nation beginning to accept extreme wickedness, and then in 2015, full-on wickedness. These are the plagues that we are warned about in the scriptures. When it says in the scriptures to flee from Babylon the Great, or Babylon, lest ye, the righteous, be partakers of her plagues and her sins, it was speaking of both spiritual plagues and physical plagues. Now, these plagues started like a woman in labor at first, and they keep getting worse and worse and worse. They began as spiritual plagues, and then they began to be physical plagues as well. And as this nation has succumbed to the wicked ideologies of Satan and turned away from the righteousness of God and his law, this nation has become burdened down with curses, to the point where in this year, 2022, you're seeing the secret combinations basically commit siege warfare against this nation. And everything from Trump to Biden to the COVID, to all of this stuff, they are spiritual and physical plagues that are allowed to happen to this world. Now, there are patriots who want to bring back righteousness to this country. And they are going to fight tooth and nail to preserve this nation. But they are fighting against God in doing so, because God is allowing this nation to be destroyed. In 2013, we moved, my family and I moved from Lisbon, New Hampshire, near Littleton, Franconia, and Mount Washington area, upstate New Hampshire. We were going to a branch of the LDS Church in Vermont. We were commanded to, we weren't commanded. We came to, God told me to go through on our trip back west to Utah to rededicate certain areas and to do certain things. and we ended up living in Spanish Fork, Utah, which was a nice place, and I was happy to live there. I had a job where I was able to deliver the mail for the United States Post Office to several post offices in Emory and Carbon County and Grand County and down into Monticello and different places. But my main route was to deliver mail in a semi-truck from the East Bay Post Office Distribution Center to Price, Utah, to deliver all the mail to Carbon County, and then to reload another truck and to deliver to all but one post office in Emory County. And it was a good job. And I really loved working and doing that job and being able to be home for a couple of hours every night and visit with my family and whatnot. Anyway, so in 2016, God commanded me to take my family and move to Emory County. And he told me to tell you, the people of the world, that you needed to leave the populated areas, the cities and the populated areas, and to instruct the people to move to Emory County, Utah, and that this would be a gathering place to stage for the Exodus. He also showed me where the Exodus would go to, where we would go to when this nation burned with the fire of riots and war, where we would be safe in the wilderness and the desert places. He told me specifically where to go, but he also told three other prophets the basic area that we would go to, an area northwest of Lake Powell, and that would be where we would go when everything fell apart. And that would be the place of safety that we, the righteous, would go to. Now, I'm not going to say exactly where that is, but we are all aware of it now, and we are all doing our part to prepare for this Exodus. Now, God has given me land with 10 acres to prepare for, to have a place to prepare, and I'm doing the best that I can. But the problem is, nobody has heeded my warnings. Nobody has gathered to Emory County, Utah. People know, there are many people who tell me they know that I am a true prophet of God, and that the messages that I have given are true and correct. But they do not do what it takes to be obedient to God's command to move to Emory County, Utah, which is 7. And the reason it's sad is because we have the opportunity to begin to build up a united order. God has given me 10 acres of land. He has given me about 5 acres to grow on. And unfortunately, somebody stole the 26 shares of water. So we have to get water, which we don't have right now, or actually have to take them to court because they stole the water from us, which I'm not going to get into in this video. But we have the opportunity to build up a united order. See, in 2013, God commanded me to organize the Church of the Living Messiah and the School of the Prophets. And I have tried to do my best to do what he has asked me to do, with some problems, but I'm trying to do what God has asked me to do, but I'm doing it by myself. Now, early Mormon leaders taught, and I don't know if it was Joseph Smith or Brigham Young, and it doesn't matter because the principle is true. They taught that The ark was as important to Noah to escape the flood as united orders are for the remnant, the saints, to escape the destruction that is coming. And he's given us the opportunity and commanded me to give you a thus saith the Lord revelation to gather to this place as a gathering place. And it boggles my mind that so many people accept me as a true messenger of God, even though I am weak in some areas, even though I don't even know why he would have chose me, because I just don't even know. I mean, he's shown me, God has shown me why he chose me, but I'm still like, oh, it's something that you see in me that I don't see in myself. But we have a place and an opportunity to prepare for Babylon the Great's destruction, and then to go into the wilderness of the highways of the top of the mountains and down into the desert places where in Isaiah 35 saw us build Zion in the desert and in the wilderness. Not in Jackson County, Missouri. Jackson County, Missouri will be to where we go after the cleansing. But Isaiah saw a geological area of mountains and desert and wilderness, which does not describe even a little bit of the area around Jackson County, which is the center place and will be a place that we will gather to in the future. But for now, the next step is to prepare for the gathering in Emery County, Utah, and to prepare for the exodus into the desert area northwest of Lake Powell, where we will remain in safety and grow, and that is where Zion will be born. And Isaiah in Isaiah chapter 35 saw these things take place. So, now this is a new YouTube channel. I had some strikes on my other YouTube channel, and I don't want to lose all of the content of that. You can find that at youtube.com/user/goddessmycompass or fundamentally Mormon on YouTube. But this one is youtube.com/ I think it's Zion's Redemption Radio Network. That's the name of the channel anyway. So I just wanted to let people know that this nation is following the principles of Balim, where Satan and his minions, the only way that they can destroy us is by feeding us wickedness and getting us to accept wickedness until we are so ripe in wickedness and abomination that we are ripe for iniquity and we can be destroyed, which is at the door as we speak. The other day there was 3,000 cattle. It was 103 degrees out. Now you've got cattle down in Nevada, out in the open range, and they're fine. You have cattle down in Texas where it is really hot, and they're still alive, but somehow the heat killed 1,500 or 3,000 cattle. That the numbers are whatever, they vary. But since 2021, in just the last year and a half, 95 to 97 food processing plants have been destroyed. Last year and the year before that, you had wildfires like crazy flare up all over North America, and these were set by Antifa and other secret combinations. You're seeing siege warfare against this nation to destroy this nation from off the face of the earth. And God is going to allow it to happen because this nation has accepted wickedness and rejected the righteousness of God's constitution, his scriptures, and his true prophets. And I tell you as a warning voice that you need to prepare to leave the populated areas, to leave the cities, and get ready. Because we're in for a roller coaster, and Isaiah only saw a very small residue or remnant of the people that were saved that came through this. Most of you watching this video will not make it through the destruction. But it is coming, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. All you can do is prepare, pray, and stay out of the way. I'm Mark Lichtenwalter. This is Zion's Redemption Radio Network. And I hope that you find your day a good, blessed day. Thank you for listening. Take care, everyone. God bless. And goodbye.